Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. The Yankees clinch a postseason berth. They win 2 out of 3 against the Seattle Mariners. Their record now sits at 89-64. So they're 4 games ahead of the Baltimore Orioles with 9 games to go. Of course, they have that 3-game set at Yankee Stadium for the last homestand of the season. And the Yankees are a half game ahead of the Cleveland Guardians, 1 on the loss side. And they also have the tiebreaker over Cleveland as well. So that's probably going to go down, I think, close to the last series, that battle for first in the American League. But, you know, the Yankees are in a pretty good spot against Baltimore. Again, for the fact that they still have that series against each other, keeps that alive. I think you take that away, and I think the Yankees are really home free. But you just never know what could happen. But, you know, all's pretty good with the Yankees right now. A couple of injury scares, actually, in Game 3. But it sounds like crisis averted kind of on both fronts. Jake Cousins left the game with right pectoral tightness, but they are making it seem like it's a minor thing. Obviously, you know, it's a little bit concerning, the fact that he left the game, and it kind of explains why he wasn't used like the night before. I think that they were guarding against it. Then, you know, the velocity was down a little bit, and I think that was somewhat intentional. So hopefully, you know, maybe he sits out the Oakland series and it'll be good to go, because you don't want to lose him. And the Yankees have been very fortunate where they've had some pretty good health. And the last thing you want is to take away a key piece out of the pen. And then Juan Soto had a really nice diving catch in foul territory, and he kind of banged his left knee into that sidewall in right field. And he was down for a little bit, but I think he's going to be okay. It's interesting. The Game 3 of this series reminds me a lot of the Game 3 against the Chicago Cubs, where the Yankees had a sloppy defensive first inning, and it ends up costing them. It's actually very almost identical, where the Yankees didn't allow any more runs after the first, but they lose by a run. That Cub game was 2-1, and the mistakes there was Glaber and kind of Judge. And then this one was Schmidt and more so Domínguez. And then the Yankees were able to score a couple of runs, and we're down by 1 for a very long time, but we're never really able to push through, and had opportunities as well. But Yankees, I was kind of surprised that a couple of things. The Yankees had a big celebration after clinching a berth, which was after Game 2. And that game went into extra innings, and the Yankees had a big champagne celebration. And I would imagine the plan will be they'll celebrate again if, don't want to, you know, say it's definite, if they do win the AL East, you know, good chance that they will celebrate again. But I was kind of thinking, I was fine with it, but I thought that the Game 3 lineup would be a lot more bench players and sitting of regulars. That didn't happen. It was essentially just business as usual, which I appreciate, but it was a day game after night game, so it just surprised me slightly. Maybe after, I think more likely, maybe after they win the division, again, because I guess with the division, it looked a little bit better going into the day than it did leaving it, because they were up 5 games on Baltimore after Wednesday. But then Baltimore wins on a walk-off homer by Santander, and the Yankees lose, and now it's 4 games. But you know what? I will say this too. I don't really mind. Of course, I want the Yankees to win the division. I want them to come in first. But if they are to play big, like if they're able to play big games in that last week, and it kind of comes down to the last few days, that may not be a bad thing, because what's probably going to happen is the Yankees will have off for a little less than a week, which is a lot. And so if you tack on more days to the end, like the Pittsburgh series, that last series, if that ends up being 2 or 3, that whole series means nothing. And then even the Baltimore series, the end of that one, then you're looking at a week and a half of really no intensity. So I think it's almost a blessing in disguise if the Yankees don't completely want to run away and hide. I think that there is some value to be had for the Yankees-Orioles series, at least the beginning of it, for things to still be kind of alive. But at the same time, though, you don't want it coming down to like the last day. And I guess I'm wondering how much stock they take in finishing in first in the American League. I think they would. Not even so much for the fact that you have home field throughout the American League playoffs, and you know that in and of itself is big. But I think more so the fact that you can avoid the Astro side of the bracket, which I think that you look at this, the American League, and that still is the team to me that you should be probably fearing the most. And just the whole wild card race is kind of crazy right now, in the fact that a lot of teams are struggling. Specifically, the Minnesota Twins have completely dropped off to the point where they are now tied for the last spot with the Detroit Tigers. So the Tigers, when the Yankees played them in the Williamsburg Little League Classic, at that point, they were playing well, but you never thought that they were going to make a run. They traded a lot of their players. They traded Jack Flaherty, some position players as well. But ultimately, they are tied for that last spot with the Twins. And where that brings me to is the Mariners. So the Mariners, this was costly. They lose 2 out of 3, but they do get a big win in Game 3. They sit miraculously only 2 games out of that last wild card spot. So they're still kind of hanging around. But either way, that doesn't pertain so much to the Yanks. And in this series, Yankees blowout in Game 1, really just a dominant performance from the Yankees. Really touched up Bryan Woo, which was impressive. Bryan Woo's when healthy, one of the better starters in the American League this season. So no doubt about it that was impressive. And then as well, you get good pitching performances pretty much across the board. Luis Gil, Nestor Cortes, and Clark Schmidt. Schmidt was probably the shakiest of the bunch, but when it comes down to it, it ends up being 5 innings, 1 earned run. So, and that's like a Luis Gil special, which is what he did again. He goes 5 innings and only allows 1 run. So generally very solid pitching for the Yankees, and the offense didn't do much in games 2 and 3, which isn't much of a surprise against, in Seattle against that pitching. I'll give them a little bit of a break, but Game 1, they really broke out, which was nice, scoring, 11 runs. And as far as the lineup was concerned, just a couple of notes, I guess, that I'll just say real quick. They end up sitting Stanton for the first 2 games of the series, which they're trying their best to have Domínguez and Verdugo both play. And so it led to Stanton not playing the first and second game. What then kind of sucks is Game 3, he did not look good against Logan Gilbert. So I think they have to be a little bit careful, and because you also had an off day on Monday. So that was 3 straight days of nothing. I would really try not to do that. So more just for him being in a rhythm. And I understand, obviously, that you're going to have presumably time off in between the regular season and the postseason, but still, I wouldn't have that be a thing. I understand where they're coming from. And look, the fact of the matter is Verdugo versus Domínguez, that is a legit battle. Domínguez the bat is starting to get going for Domínguez, but we saw some pretty bad defensive miscues. I mean, I think if you're being honest with yourself, you're going to trust Verdugo out there a little bit more right now, right? I mean, I think Domínguez, you hope he's going to be a good fielder. I mean, this is someone that could be the future center fielder of the team. But as of now, Verdugo seems to be playing a more sound outfield and left. But also Domínguez, like I said, he hit a home run this series, a couple hits in the last game. So you're seeing signs of life from him at the plate. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I think Game 1 of the playoffs, I do believe, everything being equal, Domínguez still, I think, has that slight leg up over Verdugo, but it's really close. And Stanton, I don't really see a world where he would sit in a playoff game. But look, I guess if he were to struggle, and Verdugo and Domínguez were doing well, they might just do it. But I still don't think it's very likely. And then just another note, Anthony Volpe's really been struggling a lot. And Oswaldo Cabrera did pinch hit for Volpe in the 9th inning. Now, unfortunately, Oswaldo struck out against Andres Munoz. But that was kind of the first sign that we've seen where, they would be willing, and I'm happy about it, that they are willing to have Oswaldo Cabrera pinch hit for Volpe. Volpe did not start Game 1. Oswaldo Cabrera started at short. So, Volpe's role is slowly decreasing. It's not to the point where I think it's going to be any seismic change, but you can just see little hints that they are aware of the fact that Volpe is really been struggling mightily. Really, really bad. He had 1 hit in Game 3, but it's just been a kind of a disaster for a while now for Volpe. So Oswaldo, you know how I said I felt I think it might have been last episode where the grip, where it felt like between Volpe at short and Rizzo at first, it felt like, not what I thought, but in the Yankees' mind, Volpe kind of had that shortstop locked, and I felt maybe Oswaldo's best path was first. But after this series with Rizzo, I still think Rizzo offensively is not going to give you a whole lot. He's giving you no power, but he had a couple of really big hits in Game 2. Oswaldo, now it seems to me, between short and first, that shortstop, which makes, I mean, in terms of his wall, though, that makes sense. He's more of an actual shortstop than first baseman, but I think the Volpe grip might be a little bit less, actually, than the Rizzo at first. So, real quick, no transactions to speak of. The roster's been pretty stable now for a bit. I mean, just in terms of the only pitchers that are really kind of still on the mend would be Lou Trivino and Cody Poteet. Will we see them? I don't know. Like, that's not really a guarantee. It depends on the situation. Maybe if an injury comes about. But as far as the lineup is concerned, just going through it real quick, Gleyber Torres just really doing a really nice job offensively to the point where he got his OPS above 700, but he did leave the series below. So it's 694 with a 250 batting average. But ultimately, he is really locked into that leadoff spot. Juan Soto, just so impressive. He, coming into the season, had 5 ballparks that he had not homered in. And what did he do? And all 5 of them, mind you, were not in division. So he only had like a couple of, he only had one series in each of those 5 ballparks to do it. I believe it was Cleveland, the White Sox, Angels, Texas Rangers, and Mariners. And he did it. He was able to do it in all 5. It's more of a Juan Soto-centric conversation, but pretty impressive. And he does it all in one shot. And what I mean by that is he accomplishes that with a homer. And in that same at-bat, it was his 40th homer of the year and his 200th homer of his career. Just special stuff from Juan Soto. And you just can't take for granted what you're seeing from him. So good stuff from Soto for sure. Aaron Judge with a really, really dynamic. I mean, the first game, he was the one that kind of set the table with a couple of RBI, it was a 2-run double and a 2-run single that really got them going. And the Yankees never looked back. So Judge, while the home runs have kind of ultimately dropped off, of course, we saw a couple of them in the Red Sox series. He is looking a lot better than maybe he had a couple weeks ago. Austin Wells, really nothing but praise for me for Wells overall. Wells had a big 3-run double to really totally, break it open in game 1. Other than that, though, I do notice a lot more strikeouts. He seems to be a little bit late. I do sense a little bit of a downturn for Wells, which he's entitled to, but just stating what I see. And, of course, the good thing is he has full control of that starter's job. Jose Trevino is absolutely clearly the backup, and Wells is the starter as he should be. But I have noticed that he's definitely been just a little bit slower at the plate, but still providing really sound defense and doing everything you could ask for. Jazz Chisholm Jr., he himself has also been struggling, but maybe he's getting off of the schneid with he homered in game 3. So maybe that can get him going. But then kind of under the radar, I feel like Jazz has kind of been just a little bit off offensively. I already spoke about Domínguez, already spoke about Rizzo. Oswaldo gets that shortstop start in game 1, gets a couple of hits, which was nice. Nothing crazy. And then Verdugo, he's been doing what he's been doing. He's not going to hit for a whole lot of pop. It's a lot of singles, but the at-bat quality's been there. The overall numbers are flat out bad, right? There's no way around that. Like these season numbers are way, way below anyone's even pessimistic expectations. But I also think that he can be a useful piece in some shape or form come playoff time. So Luis Gil, he gets the win, 14-6 for Gil, 5 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts. So look, the pitch count's always going to be high. 91 pitches through 5 innings. That's kind of what it is with him. 5 innings, 1 run, which you'll take every time. So I think right now, even though there is definite competition, which we'll talk about as we go through the episode, I think that Gil is in a top 3 position. I think he can feel pretty strong about his chances to start a game in the first, as part of that top 3. And you still, look, I'll just say it. Nestor Cortes, he's knocking on that door. Nestor's been really, really good. So, that's a tough decision for me. I don't think, it should be handed to anyone. That all said, I think Gil's body of work has been enough that I think he's in there. So he does that. For the Mariners, Brian Wu, like I said, this was really good stuff by the Yankees because Wu had been really good this year. He drops to 8-3, 4 2/3 innings, 9 hits, 7 earned runs, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts for Wu. And let's just run through this. So first inning, the Yankees get on the board, and it was a 2-run double by Aaron Judge to make it 2-0 after a couple of hits by Gleyber and Soto. And then in the bottom of the first, this was just, the Mariner base running in this series was worse than Yankee level bad. And there was two plays in particular, one in game one in game two. It's a 3-0 count with Justin Turner up, healed, not really finding the strike zone, struggling. It's a 3-0 count. And Victor Robles, the runner on third base, tries to steal home, catch Hill napping. Hill was alerted to it, throws it to Wells, and to get Robles out. Just in that situation, with a 3-0 count, it made no sense, but the Yankees will take advantage of stupidity. Then in the second inning, 2-out rally. Verdugo single, Gleyber single, Soto walk, and it ends up being a bases-loaded 2-run single for Aaron Judge to make it 4-0. So just like that, 4 RBIs for Judge. Jorge Polanco, the one mistake Hill makes is a Polanco solo homer, his 15th homer of the year, makes it 4-1 in the bottom of the second. Let's jump to the top of the fourth. And in the top of the fourth, you also get a 2-out situation. Gleyber Torres with a double. And then Juan Soto, like I said before, that 40th homer of the year, 200th of his career, homer in all 30 ballpark, 6-1 Yanks. Then in the fifth inning, Jasson Domínguez. So the Martian gets his first homer of the year, an impressive shot off of Wu. I would say maybe just to the left of dead center field. This was definitely a step in the right direction this series for him offensively, not defensively. So it makes it 7-1 Yanks. Then in the sixth inning, if there was any doubt, it was basically taken away because bases loaded 2-out. Austin Wells with a bases clearing double makes it 2-1 Yanks. Tim Meza comes on in the sixth, pitches a scoreless sixth inning. Then in the seventh, Marcus Stroman actually ends up with the save. So Stroman, who is now, part of the bullpen, he's not going to have really that critical of a role as we see it now, but he picks up his first save of the season, of course. 3 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned run, no walks, and 3 strikeouts. So does the job. And so the one run that he allowed was in the eighth inning. Luke Raley homer, his 21st of the season. And then the ninth, with a position player on, Leo Rivas was on, and ends up being a RBI single for Oswaldo Cabrera. Makes 11-2. Yankees win by that score. Game 2. Let's go to game 2. So the Yankees know at this point that if they win game 2, they will clinch a playoff berth, which they eventually do. And this was a game where the Yankees only had 3 hits in 10 innings, 2 of them by Anthony Rizzo. Rizzo was the offensive catalyst in this one, but Nestor Cortes is really the story. 6 innings, 4 hits, no runs, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. Nestor has been on fire lately, and he really deserved the win. Again, that win-loss record is so unlucky for him. He deserves to be better than 9-10. The numbers are much, much better than that. And Cortes, look, like he may have surpassed, and I think it's very situation dependent. He may have surpassed Clark Schmidt. He really might have in terms of you want to just make it a top 4. And I like Clark Schmidt. I want him to be a part of that rotation. But Nestor may just be slowly climbing up the ranks of the depth chart there. So he pitched really well, deserved a better fate. For the Mariners, it was a good outing for Bryce Miller. Really good outing, actually. 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 4 walks, and 8 strikeouts for him. And in this game, so now back in the lineup was Rizzo. Was he? No, was he not in that original? Who was in that line? I think, no, he was in there for that first game. Yeah, he was. It's Volpe in there for Oswaldo. And I think that was actually the only change because Stanton sat out again. So the Yankees would be facing Bryce Miller, as I said, and they would get on the board first, and it would come in the second inning. So it's a walk by Jasson Domínguez to start it out, and a 1-out walk. He then steals second, and it's a throwing error by Cal Raleigh to get him over to third. So that's the good thing about Domínguez, too, is he gives you that speed element, which the Yankees do need, because really besides Chisholm and Volpe, and some other guys will pick their spots for steals, Domínguez can definitely run. No question about that. And so what happens is runner on third, 1 out, Anthony Rizzo RBI single to make it a 1-0 Yankee lead. They would keep that lead for quite some time. And let's jump to let's go to the 7th. Tommy Kahnle comes on. So Cortes gives you those 6 innings. Kahnle gets into a little bit of trouble. There's a leadoff walk, but eventually it ends up in a situation where it's runner on second, 2 out, and they bring on Clay Holmes. Now, keep in mind at this point when this is happening, not really aware of the Jake Cousins thing. I kind of thought maybe there was a chance that he got kind of moved down in the depth chart of that bullpen. But I think they were just trying to stay away from him. Anyway, Clay Holmes comes on. I would have let Canley finish the inning. I felt like they forced Clay in there when you didn't really have to. But they do it anyway. And he got, I should mention, in this game, Jim Wolf was one of the worst home plate umpiring I've seen in terms of calling balls and strikes. It was so bad. I would say it was very negative, anti-Yankees. The Mariners got fucked a little bit, but the Yankees even more so. Really, really bad. So Holmes gets kind of fucked against Rodriguez, but then he gets Cal Raleigh to fly out. So it's 1-0. We go to the 8th. And at that point, I'm thinking, all right, he finishes the 7th, but now he starts the 8th. Strikes out a Rosarena, but then he allows a home run to Justin Turner. It's Turner's 11th homer of the season. And just like that, it's tied, and that ties the Yankee record for most blown saves in a season. So 13 blown saves for Clay Holmes, which ties Dave Righetti, 1987, and Goose Gossage, 1983. And so Holmes is one away from breaking that record. And he's out of there. I just feel like they're forcing him in there too much. I'm not saying to make him irrelevant. If you want to have him ahead of Mark Leiter Jr., for example, who we really have not seen him much at all. And it makes sense. But if you want to have him ahead of him, get it. But he should be behind Ian Hamilton. He should be behind Jake Cousins. That's just the way it is. And then you also throw in Tim Hill as a lefty who's doing well. Clay Holmes just should be really more in middle relief. Really more as a 6th, 7th inning guy, when you're losing. When you're winning and it's close, Clay Holmes should not be in there. Luke Weaver finishes out the inning, gets 2 strikeouts. And then the bottom of the 9th, gets a couple of strikeouts as well. So Luke Weaver, who ends up getting the win, goes 1 2/3 innings, no hits, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. He has just been scintillating. Ever since the Clay Holmes demotion, Luke Weaver has elevated his game even more. So that brings it to extra innings. And in extras, with Domínguez on second, and the pitcher at the time going, I think, for a second inning was Colin Snyder. Rizzo gets an RBI double. So it makes it 2-1. So a couple of RBI hits for Rizzo. They pinch run Oswaldo for Rizzo, and a really bad job by Anthony Volpe not being able to lay a bunt down. You're not hitting it all. You got to be able to do the fundamentals, and he is not able to lay that bunt down. And so they don't score. If he gets that down, there's a good chance they might get an extra run, which I always say is huge in the top half of the inning. So it remains a 1-run game, and then Ian Hamilton does the job. Ian Hamilton gets the save. He's looked really good since he's come back from injury, which is great to see because he didn't before he got hurt. So this is the Ian Hamilton that we saw a lot last season. And he does allow a bloop single to Cal Raleigh to make it 1st and 3rd, 1 out. But then he is able, this is the play of the game, and a terrible miscue by Julio Rodriguez. Randy Rosarena strikes out. And the bat goes flying, or Rosarena's bat goes flying into the direction of Rodriguez. He has to kind of scamper away from it. But he kind of falls asleep, moves away from third. He's off third base, and Wells throws to Chisholm, and they tag Rodriguez out. I just don't know what he was thinking about. I understand the initial, I got to get out of the way, but it was just crazy. And so that really makes the situation a lot easier for Hamilton, and he strikes out Justin Turner to end it. Yankees celebrate the playoff berth with this win, and they win the series. So now they've won 4 straight series dating back to the Cub one. And it kind of comes full circle because I felt like Game 3 was very, very similar. And, Yankees, they've been sweeps are difficult. I'm just going to say that. They're not easy to get. The Mariners are in a situation where they are desperate for wins. And the Mariners do have good pitching. So standing back in the lineup, Verdugo sits. And that, again, that's kind of that little hint to me that Domínguez still has that kind of leg up on him for now. Trevino in for Wells, day game after night game. But it was a much more regular lineup than I thought. Clark Schmidt's line, he loses. He's 5-4, 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, only 1 earned. And honestly, it could have actually been none because he himself made a little bit of a blunder that was ruled an infield single, but really could have been an error on Clark Schmidt. 3 walks and 7 strikeouts. So the biggest issue I had with Schmidt was there was a hit by pitch. The command wasn't quite there. And so it kind of, the pitch count was really elevated, 99 pitches through 5 innings, but ultimately he did what he had to do. But the first inning was a bit of a mess. For the Mariners, Logan Gilbert pitched well. 5 1/3 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. So he wins and goes to 8-11. And for Gilbert, Yankees have had success against him in the past, but not so much in this game. The Yankees could not break through. They were 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position. So that's not good. They really fucked up in that regard. So, like I said, first inning was a bit of a mess for the Yankees. With first and second one out, Luke Raley bunts. It wasn't a great bunt, and Clark Schmidt kind of fumbles it. They rule it as a single, but that could have been an error. Leads the bases loaded one out, and Justin Turner hits a sac fly. But to make matters worse, Domínguez kind of loses it in the sun, and it goes off his glove. I should have mentioned, in Game 2, there was a very easy fly ball. He was in center field, and Cortes got out of it. It was ruled a double. Domínguez just didn't track it. Just lost it. Really, so Domínguez, he's not looking great out there. And you look back to that Williamsport game. I'm not loving the defense, and I don't necessarily think like this is going to be like a thing. I think this is going to be someone that should be a good defender in his career, but just right now, I don't know. He doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, and that really opened up the floodgates because if that sac fly happens with a catch, very good chance that it ends up 1-0. But then instead what happens is you get another sac fly by Jorge Polanco, and then the real killer is an RBI single by J.P. Crawford, make it 3-0. So an uphill climb for the Yankees. Schmidt gets out of the rest of it. In the second inning, Volpe actually gets an RBI single with a runner on, but no, sorry. He didn't get an RBI single. He got a hit with runners in scoring position, but a really good throw by Raley to Raleigh, a little bit of a tongue twister. And they get Domínguez out. Domínguez got a leadoff double. Rizzo doesn't get him over. Trevino grounds out. Volpe actually does get the job done in a rare situation for him, but it doesn't work out as they get Domínguez out at the plate. Then in the third inning is when the Yankees are able to score their 2 runs. 2-out single by Judge and a 2-run homer by Jasson Jr. to make it 3-2. His 23rd homer of the season combined with the Yankees and the Marlins. And so that makes it 3-2. And then from there, in the fourth, first and second no out, Trevino, originally he was bunting, but then he got ahead in the count and they took the bunt off and he flat out. They should have just kept him bunting. Trevino, ever since he's come back, his offense has been really completely non-existent. Then Volpe strikes out in an ugly at bat, and then Gleyber strikes out. So Gilbert gets out of that one. And then the fifth, it happens again, where you end up with a situation of second and third. It starts out first and third one out, but then Chisholm Jr. is still second during the Stanton at bat, and Stanton strikes out swinging. A pretty poor at bat for Giancarlo, and the stats for him are getting worse and worse. It's a .231 batting average for Giancarlo, still a very respectable .762 OPS, but it had been at 800 earlier, so not great for him. And then Domínguez grounds out to end the inning. Gilbert's taken out in the sixth. Cousins comes in the sixth, hit by pitch striker, and then they pull him, like I said, for that right pectoral tightness. I think he'll be okay. They're making it seem that way, but he might be out probably for most, if not all, of the Oakland series. Tim Hill comes on, gets a double play. Tim Hill has been just really, really good, gets a lot of ground balls and soft contact, and Tim Hill has really been a very nice find by the Yankees. And then, we can go to the seventh where it's another runners in score position spot for Jazz Chisholm Jr., runner on second, 2 out after a wild pitch, and he strikes out against Troy Taylor in the seventh. It's a scoreless inning for Tim Hill. This was also the inning where Soto gets hurt on the Polanco flyout. Really nice catch by Soto, actually. The fact he got over there was impressive. He was down for a while, but I think he's going to be okay. Then, bottom of the eighth, Clay Holmes comes on. Leadoff walk to Dylan Moore, but again, Holmes kind of got screwed by the ump, to be fair to him. But ultimately, bad base running by Seattle, Holmes gets out of it, which was good. Again, I think Holmes is a lot better in these losing situations. It seems like when they're down 3-2, he's able to kind of like keep it at bay. It's something for them to think about. I don't like him when they have a lead, but when they're trailing, it's tolerable. Ninth inning, Andres Munoz comes on and just shuts the door. Austin Wells is a pinch hitter, strikes out. Oswaldo Cabrera, pinch hitting for Volpe, strikes out, and then Torres strikes out. So the Mariners salvaged that last game. Yankees, though, win the series. And they, like I said, they're up 4 games on Baltimore with 9 games to go, including that series at Yankee Stadium. And they are up by a half game on the Guardians, 1 on the loss side. And so that to me is going to be close. And I think it's going to be important for the Yankees to finish out of Cleveland at the end of the day. So now the Yankees go to Oakland in Oakland's last homestand at the Coliseum, not their last series, their last homestand. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of reminiscing, whether that be Yankee Oakland historical highlights. And there's been not so much, Domingo Germán's perfect game, but more so in terms of the playoffs. The biggest one for me is certainly the Jeter flip play in Game 3 of the LDS of 2001. That's the one that stands out for sure, probably the biggest one. But it's been really tough times for the Oakland A's. But you know what? Actually, this Oakland team, the record isn't good, but they are playing competitive baseball. And I think they are going to definitely give the Yankees a bit of a difficult time. I really do think that, especially considering it's that last homestand. I think they're going to want to kind of go out with a bang. And the pitching matchups are Garrett Cole against right-hander JT Ginn. So on paper, heavily lopsided in favor of the Yankees, but this is Cole's first start after coming off of that Red Sox outing. So hopefully he can just put that in the past and get to work. Then it's a battle of lefties in game 2. Carlos Rodon against former Yankee JP Sears. And JP Sears, he's really solid. I think that one could be difficult. Sears, again, the Yankees are not great against left-handed starting pitching, so that one will be interesting. And then in game 3, it will be Luis Gil against right-hander Joey Estes. So we'll see what happens. I'm perfectly fine with taking, again, 2 out of 3 would be great. As it pertains to the Baltimore series, you want to keep it at the 4-game mark. The Orioles are going to be home to the Tigers, which is really interesting because Detroit is as into the playoff race as they've been in a very, very long time. So they're going to be, very into it. Baltimore should be too, and I'm sure they will be because Baltimore wants to, if nothing else, Baltimore wants to make sure that they have home field for that wild card series, most likely against Kansas City. So the way I see it is not great. If the Yankees are up by 3 games, that's fine, right? Like that is totally fine, but you have to make sure you don't get swept, because if you do, then all of a sudden Baltimore would have control of their destiny. So I want to avoid that. Being up by 4 games, I'm fine with, but it doesn't really cinch it. But if you're up by 5 games, so if the Yankees gain 1 game this weekend, then you're really in pretty excellent shape. And then obviously beyond that, you're golden. So we'll see. I think 4 or 5 games, you're feeling pretty good about things, preferably 5. So we'll see what happens. We're heading, down the stretch here, and the Yankees' last 3 road games of the regular season will take place in Oakland as they finish off this West Coast road trip before heading home for their final homestand of the regular season.